My fiancé planned to skin the Wolf King as a wedding gift, so I married the wolf instead. I walked right past the altar, sliced my palm against the iron cage, and used an ancient blood law to claim the monster as my property. Now the cage is open, the prince is terrified, and the beast. He's ready to burn the world down just to keep me safe. Whalebone crushed her ribs. Elara struggled for air. The white silk sheath wasn't a wedding dress. It was a shroud. Cold, slick. It slid over her skin like the prince's smile. Tighter, her mother's voice was sharp. You are too wide. Elara gripped the vanity, mahogany biting into her palms. The pain grounded her, stopping the room from spinning. Mother, my lungs. Forget your lungs. Her mother didn't look up from the mirror, adjusting a diamond pin. You are not a woman today. You are a queen. You are the receipt for a very expensive transaction. Sold, that's all she was, cattle wrapped in lace. Oxygen starved her brain. Black spots danced in her vision until she forced herself to focus. Beneath the powder puff lay a crinkle of yellowed parchment. Statute 404, the rights of property and war. Her heart kicked against the corset. If Valerius found this. The executioner's axe was duller than the marriage bed. She preferred the axe. Elara slid the paper into her sleeve. The sharp edge grazed her wrist. A secret sting. Stop trembling, the seamstress mumbled through a mouthful of pins. Metal pierced the silk, scratching Elara's hip. She didn't flinch. She had mastered the art of invisible bleeding. Roar. The sound detonated through the balcony doors. Guttural, ancient. It rattled the crystal perfume bottles against the wood. Elara froze. The hair on her arms stood straight up. What was that? Her mother moved to the window. Sunlight fractured off her jewelry, casting sharp rainbows on the wall. The entertainment. The prince caught a monster from the Iron Clans. Elara moved, drawn by an invisible wire. She looked down into the plaza. A sea of screaming faces, and in the center a cage, black iron, massive. Inside, shadows writhed. The Wolf King, her mother scoffed. Valerius will skin it after the vows, a wedding gift to prove his strength. Elara stared. A strange heat bloomed in her chest, warring with the chill of the silk. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. The beast down there was trapped, just like her. Come away, her mother snapped. Time to pay the debt. Elara turned. The dress dragged, heavy as lead armor. But the paper in her sleeve burned against her skin. They thought she was porcelain, pretty, breakable. But when porcelain breaks, it becomes a knife. Yes, mother. She walked toward the door, but her soul remained at the window, with the monster in the dark. She wasn't walking to a wedding. She was walking to a war.
Stone bit into his hamstrings, damp, freezing. The air smelled of copper and rot. Cassius sat motionless. Chains weighed down his wrists, thick iron specifically cast to hold an alpha. Kill, the wolf snarled in the back of his mind. Rip, tear, feed. Cassius tightened his mental grip on the beast. Not yet. A spear butt clanged against the bars. Wake up, cur, the guard spat. Saliva hit Cassius's shoulder. Big day, you die for the prince. Cassius kept his head lowered. Matted hair curtained his face. Let them see a broken savage. Carelessness was their weakness. He flexed his right hand slowly under the shadow of his knee. The iron cuff groaned, a hairline fracture in the metal. He was an alpha, a king, but today he had to be a stone. If he shifted now, the iron would sear his flesh to ash. He needed to wait, to reserve the explosion. Then the air shifted. The stench of urine and rust vanished. Lavender, vanilla, and terror. The scent hit him hard, sweet, intoxicating. Cassius lifted his head, nostrils flared. Mine, the wolf slammed against his ribs, clawing to get out. Mate, find. Cassius grit his teeth until his jaw ached. He shoved the wolf down into the blackness of his psyche. Focus. Look at him sniffing, a second guard laughed. Smells the butcher's blade. Cassius closed his eyes. Drums, trumpets. The vibration traveled through the stone floor. Valerius, the usurper, the man who burned the high forest, and now he was marrying the source of that scent. Why did the lavender smell like fear? Brides should smell like joy, like arousal. She smelled like a prisoner. The heavy doors groaned open. Blinding white light flooded the dungeon. "Get him up," the captain barked. "Chain him to the wagon. The prince wants the beast in the arena before the girl arrives." 6 spears leveled at his chest. Cassius rose. He unfolded his height, towering over the humans. He was caked in mud, blood, and filth, but he didn't cower. He looked at the captain. For a heartbeat, his eyes flashed, burnished amber. The captain stumbled back, pale. Move. Cassius stepped forward. The chains dragged, singing a song of violence against the stone. He would walk into their arena. He would let them jeer. But he made a vow to the moon. He wouldn't die on his knees, and if he got within striking distance of the prince, he would paint the altar red. As he walked toward the light, the lavender scent thickened. It pulled at his navel. For the first time in months, the Wolf King felt something dangerous. Hoping.
The sun was an enemy. It blinded her. Elara descended the palace steps. The train of her dress hissed over the stone, a serpent following her heels. Lady Elara, Lady Elara. Crowds threw lilies, roses. The petals looked like blood splatter on the white marble. Their cheers were hollow. Behind the smiles, she saw the pity. Everyone knew she wasn't a bride. She was a sacrifice to a tyrant. Prince Valerius waited on the raised dais in the center of the great arena. Golden hair, polished armor, a red cape billowing like a fresh wound. He looked like a god. He was a devil. Elara's stomach churned. She gripped her bouquet, thorns piercing her gloves. The sharp pain kept the scream inside her throat. "Smile," her father hissed, squeezing her arm hard enough to bruise. "Do not shame me." Elara forced her lips upward. A rictus mask. She looked ahead. To the left of the altar, the cage. It was a monstrosity of iron and malice, and inside, him, the monster stood gripping the bars. Broad chest bare, mapped with silver scars. Muscles coiled like steel cables beneath dirt-streaked skin. He looked up, collision. His eyes, not animal, not human, liquid amber. They locked onto hers and the air vanished from the arena. The space between them crackled. He didn't roar, he didn't pace, he just watched. His gaze dropped to the prince, then snapped back to her. His lip curled. Disgust, he knew. He tasted her reluctance on the wind. Elara's breath hitched. Valerius saw a broodmare. The wolf saw her. The music died. Silence fell. She stood at the altar. Valerius took her hand. His skin was too soft, damp. "My beautiful bride," he boomed for the crowd. "You look pale." "The heat, your highness." The lie tasted bitter. He smirked. "The entertainment will rouse you." He gestured to the iron prison. "Behold, the savage king brought to heel by my hand." The crowd roared. A rotten apple splattered against the cage bars. Cassius didn't blink. His gaze remained fixed on Valerius. If hatred had weight, the prince would be crushed. Elara felt the anger spark in her belly. Trapped, both of them, one in iron, one in silk. She felt the paper in her sleeve, the rights of war. Insanity, suicide. But she looked at the wolf. The fire in his eyes called to the flint in her soul. He was strong enough to break the world. She was smart enough to unlock it. "Do it," his eyes seemed to say. "Burn it down." "We are gathered," the high priest droned. Elara yanked her hand from the prince. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The silence that followed was absolute. "Elara," Valerius whispered, his grip tightening on her wrist. "What are you doing?" She looked at him, really looked at him. The fear evaporated, replaced by cold clarity. "I am sorry, my prince." Her voice rang out, clear as crystal. She turned. She didn't run, she walked. Not toward the palace, toward the cage. "Elara," her father screamed. "Seize her," Valerius bellowed. She was faster, fueled by adrenaline and destiny. She reached the black iron. The wolf was there, inches away. He smelled of earth, blood, and raw power. He didn't recoil. He pressed his face to the bars, golden eyes searing into hers. "What are you doing, little bird?" His voice was thunder in her chest. Elara reached into her sleeve. She didn't pull the paper. She drew the jeweled dagger from her garter. The crowd screamed. Elara didn't look back. She looked at the king behind the bars. "I'm choosing," she whispered. She raised the blade and slashed her own palm. Steel bit into her palm. A sharp sting, followed by a wet, hot welling of crimson. Elara didn't flinch. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. She slammed her bleeding hand against the cold iron bars. Smack. The wet sound echoed, cutting through the arena's silence. "Elara," Valerius's laugh was brittle. "Have you gone mad? Step away from the beast." She didn't move. She locked eyes with the wolf. His pupils dilated, black swallowing gold. He smelled the copper. "By the laws of the Iron Treaty," Elara screamed. Her voice cracked, then hardened. "I invoke the Statute of Reclamation." Gasps swept through the stands. A stadium of held breath. "Statute," Valerius stepped off the dais. "What is this insanity?" Elara pressed harder. Blood trickled down the black metal, a red river on iron. "Section 4, Paragraph 2. The words rushed out, a shield against the trembling in her knees. "Any war beast presented as tribute is property of the crown." The wolf went still, a predator assessing a trap or an opportunity. "And property," she continued, "can be claimed by royal blood to settle a debt." Valerius froze, his face drained of color. You cannot." "My family paid for your wars, Valerius." The scream tore from her throat, raw and jagged. "You owe us gold, you owe us land, you have neither." The wind died. The flag stopped snapping. "So," she whispered, her gaze boring into the monster's soul, "I claim this beast, paid in full." Silence, then the magic answered. A hum, low, subsonic. It vibrated up her arm, shaking her teeth. The iron bars under her palm glowed with a pulse of angry red light. The Wolf King growled, not aggression, acknowledgement. Click. The sound was small. The implication was massive. The heavy lock sprang open. The door groaned outward. "No," Valerius shrieked. Steel rasped as he drew his sword. "Guards, kill them both." A hand wrapped around Elara's wrist. Not the prince. Massive, calloused, scorching hot. She looked up. Cassius stepped from the darkness. A mountain of muscle and old scars. He ignored the guards. He looked only at her. "You have a sharp tongue, little bird," he rumbled. His voice was gravel grinding on bone. Elara shivered. Stay behind me." He yanked her against his back, radiating heat like a furnace. The royal guards charged, spears lowered, a wall of death. Elara squeezed her eyes shut. She had unlocked the cage. Now she had to pray the monster didn't eat her first.
The lock broke. The air smelled of sweet ozone and old dust. Cassius inhaled. The iron sickness, that nausea that had kept him on his knees, evaporated. Free, the wolf howled in his skull. Hunt, kill, feast. The beast slammed against his ribcage, demanding release. Cassius shoved it back. No, full shift took too long. Bones had to break, reshape. In those 10 seconds, the girl would take a spear to the heart. He chose the middle path, the partial shift. Agony spiked through his hands, knuckles cracked, reshaped, fingernails elongated, turning black and dense as obsidian. Daggers, his jaw popped, widening, canines lengthened, cutting his own lip. Monster, a guard thrust a spear. Cassius moved. A blur, too fast for human eyes, he caught the shaft, snap, wood shattered like kindling. He slashed, claws met steel breastplate, metal shrieked and tore like paper. The man went down, gurgling. Back, another screamed, stumbling. Cassius roared, a sound halfway between a shout and a bark. It shook the stone beneath his feet. Elara clung to his waist, her small hands gripping his belt. He smelled her terror. It was thick, acrid, but beneath it, steel. She hadn't run. "Right," she screamed, "archers." Cassius didn't hesitate. Her voice cut through the blood haze. He spun. 3 arrows hissed past his ear. Valerius stood on the platform, face twisted. Aim for the girl. If I can't have her, make her a corpse. Coward, red rage blinded Cassius. He wanted to charge the dais, rip Valerius's throat out with his teeth. Thwack! An arrow grazed his shoulder. Fire, not steel, poison, wolfsbane. His vision blurred, the world tilted, his knees buckled. Cassius. Her voice anchored him. She used his name, not beast. He snapped back to focus. He couldn't fight a battalion, not poisoned, not with a fragile bird to protect. He scanned the arena, gates closed, walls too high. The sewer, Elara pointed to a rusted grate near the wall. Catacombs. Filthy, small, perfect. Hold on. He scooped her up. She weighed nothing, a feather in a storm. He barreled forward, shouldering 2 guards aside like ragdolls. The great, heavy iron, Cassius grabbed the bars. Claws dug into stone. Pull. Muscles screamed. The poison burned in his veins like acid. With a guttural roar, he ripped the grate free and hurled it aside. Jump! Elara hesitated. She looked at the black abyss, then at the volley of arrows arcing through the sky. She jumped. Cassius dove after her. Just as the darkness swallowed them, a second arrow slammed into his back. Then gravity took them.
Impact. Elara hit something soft. Wet, sludge coated her mouth. She tumbled, gasping. The stench hit her instantly. Rot, waste, stagnant water. Pitch black. Cassius, her whisper echoed off damp stone. Panic clawed at her throat. Alone in the dark with a creature she didn't know. Splash. Something heavy landed nearby. A low groan. Pained. Cassius. She scrambled backward, hands sinking into the muck. Quiet. The voice came from everywhere. 2 lights ignited in the gloom. Gold. Glowing, vertical pupils, floating 7 feet in the air. Elara's heart battered her ribs. She had claimed him, saved him, but down here, no guards, no laws, just a predator and prey. Why? He stepped closer. Water sloshed. Why do it? He rasped. You could be queen, silk sheets, gold plates. Elara wiped slime from her cheek. Her dress was ruined, a gray rag. That palace, she said, voice shaking, was a cage, just like yours. The golden eyes blinked. He leaned down. His face entered the sliver of light from the grate above. He looked wrecked, pale, sweat beaded on his forehead. An arrow shaft protruded from his shoulder. Black veins spiderwebbed from the wound. You're hurt, Elara reached out, instinct. He flinched. A rumble vibrated in his chest. Don't touch. Poison, she said. I saw the fletching, wolfsbane. I know what it is. He slid down the damp wall, sitting heavily in the filth. If you don't get it out, Elara whispered, you die. If we stay here, he wheezed, we both die. He looked at her, the feral anger fatting into exhaustion and curiosity. You know the way out. Elara nodded. I studied the old maps. The city sits on these tunnels. Good. His eyelids drooped. The gold dimmed. Cassius, sharp, commanding. His eyes snapped open. Get up. She grabbed his arm, heavy as lead. We move. Why care? He mumbled, drunk on the poison. You own me, remember I am property. Elara pulled hard. No, she said. You're my husband now, Wolf King, and I don't like being a widow. A sound escaped him. Half laugh, half cough, he stood. He swayed, leaning his massive weight against her shoulder. Elara gritted her teeth and braced her legs. Lead the way, little bird, he whispered against her hair, before the hounds catch the scent. Elara stared into the endless dark tunnel. She didn't know where it went. She didn't know if they would see the sunrise, but for the first time, she was choosing the path. This way. Together, they stepped into the shadows.
Venom surged through his veins. Wolfsbane didn't just hurt, it eroded. It felt like acid stripping the marrow from his bones. The poison crawled up his neck, tightening his throat. The stone walls of the catacombs warped, twisting like living lungs. Left here. Elara's whisper cut through the tinnitus ringing in his ears. She moved ahead of him. Her wedding dress, once pristine silk, dragged in the muck, gray, tattered, a ruined flag of surrender. But she didn't stop. Cassius leaned a shoulder against the damp brick, commanding his legs to move. Walk, the wolf snarled, packing frantically in the cage of his mind. Do not fall. Alphas do not fall. His knees buckled. He caught himself. How, he rasped. His voice was gravel and glass. How do you know the way? Elara didn't look back. Her hand trailed along the slimy moss of the wall. The library, she said softly. While other girls learned to embroider, I memorized the city schematics. These tunnels were built for armies. Cassius stared at her spine, small, fragile. A gust of wind could snap her, but inside, rebar. He had miscalculated. He saw a spoiled princess, a porcelain doll. He was wrong. She was leading a predator through the dark when he couldn't tell up from down. She froze. Cassius. He stumbled to her side. The floor ended. A chasm, a jagged mouth in the earth, 10 feet across. Below, black water rushed, angry and fast. I can't, Elara whispered. The steel in her voice cracked. Cassius measured the distance. Thump, thump. The poison pulsed in time with his heart. A simple jump for the wolf. But the wolf was chained by the toxin. He couldn't shift. His human muscles were trembling. He had to get her across. Come here. She turned. Her eyes were wide, blue as the summer sky. I am going to throw you. You're going to what? Trust me. He didn't wait. He grabbed her waist. She gasped, hands flying to his chest. She felt weightless, but her heart hammered against his palm like a trapped sparrow. Brace, he gritted out. He ignored the screaming agony in his shoulder. He focused on her. Lavender, sweat, trust, he launched her. She screamed, a sharp cut-off sound. White silk fluttered over the abyss. She hit the far ledge hard. She rolled, scrambling for traction in the dirt. She stood. Cassius, jump. He looked at the gap, 10 feet. It might as well have been a mile. Do it, the wolf roared. Fly or die. Cassius took a breath. He ran. He pushed off the edge. For a heartbeat, he was weightless. Gravity grabbed him. He hit the ledge. His chest slammed into the stone. Oxygen fled his lungs. He slipped backward toward the rushing water. No. Small hands grabbed his tunic, then his wrist. Elara dug her heels into the mud. She groaned, straining against his massive weight. Get up. Cassius kicked, scrambled, claws dug into the dirt. With a final, agonizing heave, he hauled himself up. He collapsed onto the cold earth. The world spun. Gray spots devoured his vision. We made it, Elara panted, leaning over him. Her hair brushed his face, soft. Not yet, he whispered. The darkness rose to claim him, and he let it.
He was a furnace. Elara pressed her palm to his forehead. Burning, Cassius lay on the tunnel floor unconscious. His breathing was a wet, ragged rattle. The black veins had climbed his neck. They pulsed, ugly and swollen, threatening to reach his jaw. Don't you dare, she whispered. I didn't steal you just to bury you. She scanned the dark, damp, quiet, safe for the moment. She grabbed the hem of her dress, the silk that cost more than a village. Reep. The sound was satisfying. She tore a long strip, then another. She crawled to a trickle of groundwater leaking from the wall, soaked the cloth, ice cold. She returned to him. This will hurt. She slapped the wet rag onto his forehead. He flinched. A low, vibrating growl started in his chest. His lips peeled back. Teeth, sharp, predatory, even asleep, he was lethal. Elara's hand trembled. She forced it still. She moved to his shoulder. The wound was a nightmare, purple edges, black center, oozing. She wiped the dried blood. Cassius thrashed. His hand, the one with the obsidian claws, shot out. He seized her wrist, a vice grip. Elara gasped. Cassius, stop. His eyes snapped open, molten wild. Traitor, he snarled at a ghost over her shoulder. I'll kill you. He squeezed, her bones ground together. Cassius! Elara didn't pull away. She couldn't. She leaned in, into his space, into the danger. She cupped his burning cheek with her free hand. Look at me. She used the voice she used on the stallions. Low, dominant, calm. You are not in the cage, you are with Elara. He blinked, the gold swirled, fighting for focus. Elara! His voice was a broken croak. Yes, I am helping you. Release. Slowly, the iron grip loosened. He looked at her wrist. Angry red welts bloomed on her pale skin. Shame flooded his gaze. The wolf retreated. I hurt you, he tried to pull away. Monster. You're not a monster, Elara said firmly, dipping the cloth back into the water. You're a man with a fever and a bad attitude. She returned to the wound. He watched her. His gaze was heavy, weighing on her skin. Why? He rasped. Why stay? You could run. Elara paused. His face was hard, scarred, dangerous, but his eyes, they were lost. Because, she said, tying off the bandage with a sharp tug, you jumped into the dark for me. She sat back, wiping sweat from her brow. Besides, she added, a ghost of a smile touching her lips, who else is going to carry me across the puddles? Cassius stared at her. A long silence stretched between them. Then the corner of his mouth twitched. You are a strange woman, little bird. And you are a heavy wolf. He closed his eyes. His breathing evened out. The fever broke, the heat dissipating into the cool tunnel air. Elara leaned back against the rock. Exhaustion pulled at her bones. She watched him sleep, the rise and fall of that massive chest. She realized something terrifying. She wasn't afraid. Here, in the dark, with a beast capable of tearing throats. She felt safer than she ever had in her golden tower.
Light hit him like a physical blow. Cassius squinted, shielding his eyes as they shoved through a curtain of thick vines. The air changed. The rot of the sewers vanished, replaced by pine, loam, and crisp wind. The hinterlands. We're out, Elara breathed. She spun, arms out, face turned to the canopy. She looked like a wreck, mud-streaked, dress shredded, hair a tangled disaster. To Cassius, she looked like a queen. The fever was a dull throb now. Manageable, he could stand, he could kill. His stomach growled, a loud, demanding roar. Elara laughed, bright, bell-like, food first. She walked toward a bush heavy with crimson berries. Wait, Cassius lunged. He grabbed her shoulder. Those are fire berries, they'll burn your stomach out. Elara paused. She plucked a berry, holding it up to the light. No, she said confidently. Look at the serrated leaves. These are sweet caps. They mimic fire berries to deter grazing deer. She popped it into her mouth, chewed, smiled. See. Cassius stared. He was the Wolf King. He lived in these woods, and she was lecturing him on foliage. He huffed another book. Botany of the Northern Wilds, she said, tossing him a handful. Volume 3. It was very dry but useful. He caught them, ate one. Sugar burst on his tongue. Energy flooded his limbs. We move, he said, scanning the tree line. The hounds won't stop at the gates. They pushed deeper. The trees grew ancient here, oaks the size of towers. Cassius felt the land hum against his skin. Home. He reached out to touch a massive trunk, grounding himself. He froze. What is it? Elara whispered. Cassius traced a carving in the bark, a circle with a slash, the mark of the Iron Clans, but it was wrong. Fresh sap oozed from the cut and branded directly over it. A second symbol, a crown. The Royal Guard, Cassius growled. The vibration started deep in his chest. They've been here. Recently, Elara moved closer, her shoulder brushing his arm. Hours, Cassius sniffed the wood. Sulfur, mages. He looked at Elara, his face was granite. They aren't just hunting us, little bird. He pointed to the mud, boot prints, dozens heading north. They are hunting my pack. Elara paled, but the treaty, the Iron Clans are safe in the hinterlands. Valerius used the treaty as toilet paper, Cassius spat. He clenched his fists. Claws pricked his palms. They're walking into a slaughter, My people don't know the army is this close. He looked north, then at Elara. He couldn't protect her and save them, but he looked at her jaw, the set of her shoulders, the mud on her cheek. She wasn't a burden. She had broken him out. She had saved him in the dark. She wasn't a pet. She was a partner. We have to warn them, Elara said. Not a question, a command. Cassius nodded. Run. Run, she agreed. They took off into the shadows, but the wind shifted. It carried a sound from behind them. Aowu. Hollow, unnatural, not a wolf, a hound. The hunt had begun.
The forest wasn't just alive, it was screaming. Elara's lungs burned. Every breath tasted of copper. Faster, Cassius roared from the thicket ahead, a blur of shadow and motion cutting through the briars. Elara stumbled. Her boot caught a slick root. She hit the dirt hard. The impact jarred her teeth. Crack. Behind her, a sapling splintered. A hound. Not a dog, a nightmare stitched together with necromancy. Size of a warhorse, eyes like burning coals, it lunged. Elara, her mind screamed. She rolled. The beast's jaws snapped shut where her neck had been a second ago. Snap, the sound of a bear trap closing. Cassius. He was engaged, fighting two beasts on the ridge, a whirlwind of claws and blood. He couldn't reach her. Elara scrambled backward on her elbows. Her hand closed around a jagged rock. Heavy, granite, she didn't throw it. That was prey behavior. She saw the massive, rotting deadfall tree above the beast, held by a single strained root system. Physics, leverage, the fulcrum. The hound snarled, crouching to pounce. Saliva dripped onto the leaves, sizzling like acid. Eat this, Elara hissed. She jammed the rock under the tension root and kicked. Hard, the fulcrum shifted. Crash. The dead tree groaned and snapped free. It fell, the hammer of a god. It crushed the hound's spine. The beast yelped, a high, pitiful sound, and then went still under the massive trunk. Elara stared, heaving. Adrenaline flooded her system, making her hands shake. She had done that. She had killed a monster. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun, dagger raised. It's me, Cassius barked. He was covered in black ichor, breathing hard. You killed it. He looked at the crushed beast, then at her. His eyes were wide. Gravity, she panted. It's a law. Effective, he grunted. He knelt by the carcass. He ripped a leather pouch from its spiked collar. What is that? Cassius opened it, pulled out a scroll, read it. His face went pale. What? Elara snatched the parchment. Her eyes scanned the bold ink. WANTED, Lady Elara of House Vane. Alive. Reward, 10,000 gold crowns. Public execution scheduled for the Festival of the Moon. The paper trembled in her fingers. Valerius didn't just want her dead. He wanted to make her a spectacle. He wants to burn you, Cassius whispered. His voice dropped an octave, vibrating with a low growl. To prove that no one defies him. Elara crumpled the paper. Fear threatened to choke her. But then, she looked at the dead monster under the tree. She wasn't the girl in the silk dress anymore. That girl died in the cage. Let him try, she said. Cassius looked at her. A strange heat flared in his gold eyes. Respect, or something primal. We move, he said roughly. The rest of the pack will smell the blood. A howl ripped through the air. Closer, hungry, Elara nodded. She didn't wait for him to lead. She turned north, toward the mountains, toward the war.
Rain fell like needles, cold, unforgiving. It washed the black blood from his skin, but it couldn't wash away the dread in his gut. They needed shelter. There, he pointed. Ahead, swallowed by ivy and gloom, stood ruins, broken pillars, stone arches defying gravity, a shrine of the first kings. It looks haunted, Elara shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. Old magic, Cassius murmured. Hounds can't cross the threshold. The warding repels dark constructs. They stepped inside. The air changed instantly, dry, still, smelling of ozone. In the center, a stone altar cracked down the middle. Cassius walked toward it. A magnetic pull tugged at his sternum, a hook in his heart reeling him in. Come closer, the stone seemed to hum. He placed his hand on the cold slab. His palm was still bleeding from the fight. A single drop of crimson fell into the fissure. Hiss! The room detonated with light. Runes etched into the floor ignited, blue, then white, then gold. Cassius, Elara gasped, "What is happening?" The light shot upward, weaving into the air. A genealogy, a family tree made of pure energy. Cassius stared. He saw his father's name, his grandfather, and above them, names that belonged to myth, the Iron Kings. And below them, a separate, smaller branch, the stewards, and under the stewards, House Valerius. The truth unraveled. "You," Elara whispered. She was reading the light, her face bathed in gold. "You aren't just a clan leader. You aren't a barbarian." She looked at him. "Valerius's family were the servants. They stole the throne while your ancestors fought the Great War." Cassius felt the weight of the world crash onto his shoulders. "I am the heir," he whispered. "It wasn't a boast, it was a curse." "The true king," Elara corrected. The light shifted. It formed a shape, a crown, but it wasn't metal, it was made of veins, arteries, beating like a heart. The text below it seared into his mind. The crown is not worn, the crown is bled. The Iron Crown, Cassius realized, reading the ancient tongue. It's not an object, it's a magical construct. It lives in the blood of the air. He looked at his hands. They looked the same, but they felt heavy. "I am the weapon. If I die, the magic protecting the realm dies. The barrier falls. The darkness consumes everything." He backed away from the altar. "I can't be this. I am a killer, not a savior." "You are what you were born to be," Elara said softly. She stepped into the light. She reached out. "Cassius." "No," he recoiled. "Don't you see, I am a walking bomb. If Valerius kills me, he destroys the world." He looked at her. "And you are standing in the blast zone."
The silence pressed down on them. Cassius wouldn't look at her. He stared at the rain, his back a wall of corded muscle and tension. "You have to go," he said. His voice was flat. "Village to the east, neutral territory. I'll draw the hounds north." Elara felt a spark of anger ignite. "You're sending me away." "I am saving you," he growled. He turned. His eyes were desperate. "Elara, look at what I am. I carry the apocalypse in my veins. I can't protect you." "I didn't ask you to protect me," Elara shouted. The sound echoed off the stone. "I saved you, remember? I claimed you. I walked into the dark for you." "And you'll die for me if you stay," he roared back. He grabbed her shoulders. His grip was tight, terrified. "You are soft, Elara. You are silk and light and books. You don't belong in this war." Elara slapped him. Crack. It wasn't hard, but it shocked him into silence. "I am not soft," she hissed. She grabbed the front of his dirty tunic and yanked him down to her level. "I am the only reason you are standing here. I am the only one who can read the maps. I am the only one who knows the laws." She stared deep into his golden irises. "Without me, Cassius, you are just a sword without a hand. You'll break." Something inside him shattered. The wall crumbled. "You're right," he whispered. "I'm nothing without you." The air between them burned. Elara's heart skipped a beat. "Then don't send me away," she breathed. "I can't," he groaned. In the span of a breath, he closed the gap. His mouth crashed onto hers. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry. It tasted of rain and danger. Elara melted into him, pulling him closer. "Mine," his touch screamed. "Mine." For a moment, the war didn't exist. There was only the heat of his skin and the chaotic rhythm of his heart against hers. Snap. A branch broke outside. Cassius pulled back instantly. He shoved Elara behind him. His eyes flooded with amber light. A low snarl ripped from his throat. "Down," he commanded. Elara looked past him. The forest was glowing, but not with sunlight. Orange, flickering, violent. "Fire," she whispered. Smoke curled into the shrine. Thick, black, acrid. "They didn't just track us," Cassius growled. "They surrounded us." He looked at her one last time. They're burning the forest down with us inside. Elara drew her dagger. The metal gleamed in the firelight. She stood beside him, shoulder to shoulder. Then we burn our way out, she said. Cassius grinned. It was a terrifying, feral thing. Yes, my queen, he said. We burn.
The heat was a living thing. It hunted them through the trees. Orange flames licked at their heels, hungry and fast. Smoke filled Cassius's lungs, tasting of ash. Keep moving, he roared. He gripped Elara's hand. An anchor. Because of his hold, she stayed upright when the earth shuddered. They burst through a wall of thorns into a clearing, but they weren't alone. Growl. Shadows detached themselves from the smoke. Dozens, yellow eyes, gray fur, teeth bared in a rictus of hate, the Iron Clans, his people. Cassius, a voice barked. A massive wolf stepped forward, shimmered, snap, bones realigned, skin knit together. A man stood there, scarred and furious, Kale, his second in command. Alive, Kale spat. He looked at Cassius, relief warring with anger. Then his eyes slid to Elara, his lip curled. And you brought a pet. The pack circled. Low growls vibrated the air. She is not a pet, Cassius said. His voice dropped. Subsonic, she is under my protection. She is a Vane, Kale shouted, pointing a jagged sword at Elara's throat. Her father built the cages. Her prince burns our forest. Kill her before she leads the hounds to the rest of us. No, Cassius stepped in front of her. Claws slid from his fingertips. Touch her and you lose the hand. The tension snapped tight. The pack hesitated. Then Elara stepped out from his shadow. You're right, she said. Her voice trembled, but her chin was high. My family built the cages. The wolves snarled. Even so, she continued, I know how to open them. She reached into her ruined dress, pulled out charcoal and a scrap of leather. The city walls are impenetrable from the outside. She held up the drawing, but here. She pointed to a line near the river, the aqueducts. They run under the palace, dry in the summer. Kale squinted at the map. It's a back door, Elara whispered, straight to the throne room. Silence fell. The wolves looked at the map, then at the small girl holding it. Why give us this? Kale asked. Because Valerius has something of mine, she said. Her eyes were hard as flint. Kale's face softened a fraction. We saw the prisoners they took this morning. A young girl looks like you. Elara's breath hitched. My sister, Rena. Execution block, Kale said grimly. Scheduled for tonight before the feast. Elara swayed. Cassius caught her. He felt the tremor in her body, not fear, rage. Then we don't run, Cassius growled. We hunt.
The cave was cold, but Elara felt like she was standing in a furnace. Rena, they had Rena. She paced before the fire. The wolves watched her. Distrust hung heavy in the air, but they were listening. We can't charge the gates, Elara said, pointing to her diagram in the dirt. Archers here and here. So we die fighting, Kale grunted, sharpening his axe. No, Elara snapped. We don't die, we win. She looked at Cassius. He watched her with that intense, hungry gaze. The wedding feast. Supply wagons are entering the city all day. Wine, meat, grain. So, Kale asked. So, Elara said. We aren't an army, we are cargo. A Trojan horse, Cassius whispered. A smile touched his lips. We hide in the wagons, enter the courtyard. When the bells ring for the execution, we attack from the inside. Crazy, suicide. Cassius stood up. He walked to a bowl of ash and water, war paint. He dipped his fingers in the black paste. It's a good plan. The room went quiet. The Alpha had spoken. He walked to Elara. Close your eyes, he murmured. Elara obeyed. Her heart hammered against her ribs. He traced a line of cold ash across her forehead, 2 lines on her cheeks. His touch was gentle, reverent. You aren't a lady anymore, he whispered against her skin. What am I? She breathed. You are the queen of the Iron Clans. He stepped back. Elara opened her eyes. The wolves nodded. Fists pounded on chests, a rhythm of war. Boom, boom, boom. Tonight, Cassius said, his voice ringing off the stone, the gilded cage burns. Elara caught her reflection in a puddle. The face staring back wasn't the girl who cried over corsets. It was a woman ready to burn the world for her family. Let's go, she said. And for the first time, the pack followed.
Dust clogged his nose. Cassius lay curled in the grain wagon buried under sacks of wheat, dark, hot, suffocating. Beside him, Elara's heat radiated. She was trembling. Steady, he projected the thought. The pack bond hummed. Steady, little bird. The wagon hit a bump. Halt, a guard shouted. The wagon stopped. Cassius stopped breathing. He forced his heart rate down. If they were found, it was over. Contents, the guard asked. Grain for the feast, the driver answered. Kale's cousin, brave man. Smells like wet dog, the guard muttered. Cassius's claws extended, digging into the wood floor. Check it. Footsteps, heavy boots on the wood, thwack. A spear tip plunged into the grain sacks, inches from Cassius's ear. Elara gasped, tiny, almost inaudible. Thwack closer. Cassius didn't flinch, he became stone. Thwack. Pain, the spear tip sliced into his thigh, deep, scraping the femur. A roar built in his throat, a primal scream of agony and rage. He swallowed it, bit his tongue until his mouth filled with copper. Silence. If he roared, Elara died. Clear, the guard grunted, withdrawing the spear. The wagon lurched. Cassius exhaled violently. Cassius, Elara whispered in the dark, I smell blood, you're hurt. It's nothing, he lied through gritted teeth. The pain was sharp, throbbing, focusing. Cobblestones rumbled beneath them. The sounds of the city washed over the cart. Laughter, music, glass clinking, the belly of the beast. Dong, a bell, deep, mournful dong, the execution bell. It's time, Elara hissed. Cassius shifted his leg, fire shot up his hip. Ready. No, she said. Good, he growled. A feral grin cut the darkness. Fear makes you sharp. The wagon stopped. Now, Kale shouted from the lead cart. Cassius burst from the grain sacks. Hay exploded like gold snow. He erupted. R-O-A-R. He leaped from the cart, landing in the courtyard with earth-shattering force. Guards froze. Nobles screamed, dropping wine glasses. In the center, Valeria stood on the execution platform, sword raised over a girl's neck. Cassius locked eyes with the prince. Hello, your highness, Cassius snarled. And the slaughter began.
Victory felt hollow. For a heartbeat, it was perfect. The ambush, the chaos, the iron wolves tearing through the royal guard. Elara stood in the blood-slicked courtyard, dagger tight in her palm. She watched Cassius, a blur of white fury, decimate the shield wall. He was unstoppable. Get Lena, she screamed, pointing her blade at the execution block. Kale broke formation, sprinting toward her sister. Then the sound started. HMMMMMM. Not a horn, not a scream, a vibration. Subsonic at first, then climbing, pitchy, screeching, a drill boring into her skull. It rattled Elara's teeth. The wolves stopped. Mid-leap, mid-bite, Cassius froze. He fell to his knees, clawing at his ears. A howl of pure, distilled agony ripped from his throat. Cassius, Elara ran toward him. The ground shuddered. Giant metal pillars, hidden behind the banners of the Golden Lion, slammed into the cobblestones. THOOM, THOOM, tuning forks. Massive. Runes etched into the cold steel glowed a sickly, bruised purple. Magical dampeners, Elara whispered. Her blood turned to ice. He knew. The vibration didn't just stop the magic. It weaponized it. All around the courtyard, shifters writhed. Bones tried to shift back, but the sound locked them in a horrific half-state. Broken limbs, twisted spines. Did you really think, a smooth voice boomed, that I wouldn't bear trap my own garden? Valerius stepped to the edge of the platform. He wasn't scared. He was smiling. He held a crystal in his hand, poolsing in time with the pillars. Stop it, Elara screamed. She charged. A guard slammed the butt of a spear into her stomach. Elara hit the stones, curling around the pain. "Bring her," Valerius commanded. Rough hands dragged her up the steps and threw her at the prince's feet. "Look at them, Elara," Valerius whispered. He grabbed a fistful of her hair, wrenching her head up. "Look at your masterpiece." Cassius was on the ground below, bleeding, convulsing. He tried to stand, but the sound waves hammered him down. "You led them to the slaughter," Valerius hissed in her ear. "Their blood is on your hands. Because of that, they will die screaming." Elara's vision blurred. Her intellect, her perfect plan. It wasn't a Trojan horse. It was a gift-wrapped sacrifice.
Pain blinded him. The world was screaming purple. The sound from the pillars felt like hot needles driven into his brain. Every instinct screamed shift, fight, kill, but his body was a cage. The magic in his blood was frozen, jagged shards tearing him apart. He forced his head up. He saw her. Elara, she was on her knees. Valerius had one hand in her hair and the other, a dagger against her throat. "Stop fighting, dog," Valerius shouted, "or I open her up right here." Cassius froze. The dampeners hummed. Wub, wub, wub. "That's better," Valerius sneered. He looked at the terrified nobles, then back at Cassius. "We have a problem, beast. I can't kill you. The ancient laws protect the true king. If I spill your blood on the stones, the city falls." He pressed the knife harder. A pearl of red blood welled on Elara's white skin. Cassius growled, a low, broken sound. But Valerius smiled. "I can make you wish you were dead." He kicked Elara. She sprawled onto the wood. "Here is the deal, the right of submission, you know it." Cassius's heart stopped. The right worse than death, the binding of a soul. "Kneel," Valerius commanded. "Swear fealty, become my hound, my weapon." "No, Cassius," Elara screamed. "Don't, he'll kill us anyway." Valerius slapped her. She fell silent, dazed. He grabbed Rena and dangled her over the edge of the platform. "Choose," Valerius roared, "your pride or their lives." Cassius looked at Elara. Her eyes were wide, pleading, not for herself, for him. "Don't break," she mouthed. But he was already broken. He couldn't watch her die. He couldn't watch the innocent fall. Cassius rasped. The words tasted like bile. He forced himself to his knees. The cobblestones bit into his skin. "I submit," he roared. The crowd gasped. "Say it all," Valerius demanded. Cassius lowered his head. The gold in his eyes turned to dull brass. "I yield my will. I yield my blood. I yield my crown." "To whom?" "To King Valerius." Boom! Thunder cracked overhead. The magic accepted the vow. A collar of black energy materialized around Cassius's neck. It snapped shut with a sickening crunch. The connection to his pack, severed. The connection to the wild, gone. He felt the weight of Valerius's mind press against his own. Cold, oily. "Sit," Valerius thought. Without thinking, Cassius's body obeyed. He sat back on his heels. "Slave." Valerius laughed. He threw Rena back onto the platform. "Put him in the kennels," Valerius ordered, "and bring me his leash." Cassius looked up at Elara one last time. "Forgive me," he sent through the bond just before the black collar strangled the connection. Then the darkness took him.
The mud was cold. The city gate slammed shut with a final, echoing boom. Elara lay in the ditch outside the walls, bruised, bloody, alone. "And stay out," a guard shouted from the ramparts. "Come back and the prince feeds your wolf to the pigs." Silence. Rain began to fall. Lost, she had lost her title. Her sister was a prisoner, and Cassius, the image of him on his knees, the collar, it burned behind her eyelids. He had given up everything. His crown, his soul, for her. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the dirt. She curled into a ball. She wanted to sleep, to fade into the earth and be forgotten. Throb. Her right hand, the one she had sliced. She opened her palm. The scar was fresh, pink, angry. The blood right. She stared at it, Valerius had the man, he had the body of the wolf, but the law. Elara sat up, her mind, usually a storm of variables, focused on a single point: the statute of reclamation. Property claimed by royal blood to settle a debt. She had claimed him, legally, magically. And Valerius had stolen her property. The right of submission was powerful, yes, but it was a contract between men. The blood right was a contract with the earth. He didn't annul the marriage, she whispered. She stood, legs shaking, dress in rags, a beggar, but inside, a fire ignited, a white-hot ember in the ash. Valerius thought he won because he had the sword and the crown. He forgot who she was. Elara of House Vane, the strategist, the girl who memorized the rulebook so she could burn it. He stole from me, she said, louder. She turned toward the massive wooden gates. No army. The wolves were captured, but she had something else. She walked to the edge of the moat. Commoners gathered on the walls, peering down at the fallen lady. Listen to me, she screamed. Her voice was raw, but it carried. The man on the throne is a thief. Some laughed, others stopped to listen. He broke the Iron Treaty, she yelled. He poisoned the land, and now he has stolen what the gods gave to me. She raised her scarred hand. I am the bride of the Iron King, she shrieked, and I am calling in the debt. As if summoned, the scar on her hand began to glow. Not red, gold. The people on the wall gasped. Elara felt the magic surge, not from Cassius, from the land itself, responding to the violation. She wasn't just a wife. She was a plaintiff. The city was the judge. Open the gates, she commanded. The wood groaned. They didn't open, not yet, but on top of the wall a guard dropped his spear, then another. They looked at the glowing mark, then back at the palace. Elara smiled, a terrifying broken thing. Let's try that again, she whispered. She started walking toward the locked doors. She would get her husband back, or she would tear this city down, brick by bloody brick. The mud was slick grease under her bare feet. Elara walked toward the massive wooden gates. She didn't look back at the dark forest. She didn't flinch at the lightning splitting the sky. Above her, the heavens turned black, a storm summoned by the blood debt. Open the gates, Elara screamed. Her voice wasn't sound. It was command wrapped in raw magic. The guards on the ramparts clapped hands over their ears. Shoot her, the captain of the guard bellowed. The prince commands it. An archer drew his bow. The wood creaked. The arrow tip aimed straight for Elara's heart. She stopped. She looked up. Her eyes burned with a blue that wasn't human. Do it, she dared him. Kill the true queen, see what the land does to you. The archer's hands trembled. He stared at the golden mark glowing on Elara's palm like a second sun. Then he looked at the dark, silent palace behind him. He lowered the bow. I have a daughter, the archer whispered, voice carried by the wind. The prince took her for the kitchens. I never saw her again. Clatter, he dropped his bow. Traitor, the captain roared, drawing his sword. Thwack, a loose cobblestone flew from the city streets behind the gate. It struck the captain's helmet. He stumbled. Let her in, a voice shouted from inside the walls. A baker, a woman covered in flour and righteous fury. The Wolf King didn't burn the forest. Another voice joined the chorus. Valerius did. We saw the smoke. The lie fractured. The fear broke. Elara placed her glowing hand on the wet wood of the gate. By the blood in my veins, she whispered, the magic humming against her skin. I annul the usurper's authority. Crack. The massive iron lock on the inside didn't just unlock. It detonated. The gates groaned and swung inward. Elara didn't wait. She stepped through. Chaos. People flooded the streets, a river of torches, pitchforks, and sledgehammers. They didn't fight her. They parted for her. Where is he? Elara asked a blacksmith gripping a heavy iron bar. Throne room, the man growled, trying to flee through the royal tunnels. No, Elara said, wiping rain and hair from her face. He doesn't get to leave. She grabbed a discarded sword from the mud, heavy, crude. She dragged it anyway. Follow me, she shouted to the mob. The roar that answered her was louder than the thunder. Elara ran toward the palace, toward the thief who stole her life. She wasn't a strategist anymore. She wasn't a lady. She was the hurricane.
Darkness, Cassius floated in the void. No sight, no feeling in his limbs, only the collar. It was absolute zero. A snake made of ice coiled around his throat, whispering poison directly into his brain. You are nothing. You are a dog, a bay. Chained to the wall in the deepest dungeon. Submission complete, a guard laughed somewhere in the gloom. He doesn't even growl anymore. Cassius wanted to rip the man's throat out, but the collar squeezed. Paralysis. He closed his eyes, tried to find his name in the fog. Cassius, king. No, the collar hissed, slave. He drifted, fatting into the gray, then, a pulse, thump thump, not his heart, hers, Elara. She wasn't dead, she wasn't running, she was close. The ground shuddered, dust rained from the ceiling. Roar. Not a beast, a crowd, thousands of voices chanting one name. Elara, Elara. The sound vibrated through the bedrock. With every shout, the cold grip of the collar loosened. Valerius's magic was built on belief, authority. Above ground, that authority was turning to dust. Cassius opened his eyes. The gold returned, faint but burning. She came back, he rasped. Hey, the guard shouted, rattling the bars. Shut up, mutt. He poked Cassius with a spear tip. Cassius looked at the steel, then at the guard. Run, Cassius rumbled. The guard froze. What? My wife is knocking at the door, Cassius grinned, a terrifying baring of teeth. And she sounds angry. Crack. Cassius flexed. The iron chains groaned. Stop, the guard fumbled for his keys. Too late. Elara's rage flooded the bond. A lightning bolt striking his soul. It fed him. It burned away the shame. I am not a dog. I am the Iron King. He stood, the collar flared black, searing his skin. Cassius didn't care. He roared. He pushed the magic outward, an explosive decompression of power. Shatter. The collar disintegrated. Shards of black metal turned to shrapnel. The guard screamed as the magical backlash slammed him into the far wall. Silence. Cassius was free, but he wasn't done. A pull deep in his marrow, the ancient blood, he didn't just shift, he evolved. Bones snapped, reshaped, lengthened, muscles doubled in density, white fur pure as snow burst from his skin. He wasn't the Wolf King anymore. He was the Avatar, the white wolf of the First Age. He looked at the heavy dungeon door. With a single swipe of a claw the size of a dagger, he tore the door off its hinges. He sniffed the air. Fear. Fire. Valerius. Hunt.
The palace doors lay in splinters. Elara stepped over the gilded debris. The great hall was empty. The fighting raged outside, but Elara knew the rat's path. She walked toward the throne room. Her heavy sword carved a line in the marble floor. Scrape, scrape. She kicked the gold doors open. Valerius. He sat on the iron throne. He looked small. His crown sat crooked on sweaty hair. You, he spat. He stood. In his hand, a staff glowing with sickly purple light. You ruined everything, my kingdom, my legacy. It was never yours, Elara said calmly. She stepped closer. Where is my husband? Valerius laughed, high manic. The dog in the pit, dead by now. Elara's heart skipped. No, she would feel the void. Liar, she hissed. She lifted the sword, clumsy, heavy. You think you can kill me? Valerius sneered. I have the sorcerer's staff. I control the stone itself. He slammed the staff down. Rumble. The statues lining the room, ancient knights carved from granite, moved. Stone grinding against stone. 4 of them stepped down, 10 feet tall, indestructible. Kill her, Valerius commanded. The golems marched. Elara backed up. She swung at the first one. Clang. The blade bounced off the stone leg. The vibration numbed her arm. The statue raised a massive fist. Elara rolled. Smash. The fist cratered the marble where she had stood a second ago. Give up, Elara, Valerius shouted. I will hang your body from the walls. Elara scrambled up, trapped, surrounded by walking mountains. She scanned for a lever, a weakness, nothing, she was going to die. Here, alone. A stone hand grabbed her ankle, crushing weight. Elara screamed, slashing at the wrist. Useless. Valerius walked closer. He drew a serrated knife. Any last words, princess? Elara stopped fighting. She looked him in the eye. Yes, she whispered. Look behind you. Valerius frowned. What? Boom. The wall behind the throne didn't break. It vaporized. Dust and masonry sprayed the room. A massive shape stepped through the ruin. Huge, twice the size of a normal wolf, fur white as bone, eyes burning with the light of a dying star. It opened its jaws. ROAR. The sound shattered the stained glass windows, blew out every candle in the hall. Valerius dropped his knife. He fell backward onto the steps of the throne. No, he whimpered. Impossible, the myths. Elara smiled. She looked at the white wolf. He's not a myth, Valerius, she said. The wolf looked at her. A nod, one beat of recognition. Then he turned his gaze to the stone giants, and he pounced.
The white wolf didn't just fight, he ruined. Cassius lunged, a living avalanche. He hit the first stone knight with the force of a siege engine. Crack! Granite shattered like sugar glass. The statue's arm disintegrated into dust. The second golem swung a sword the size of a gate. Move, the wolf screamed. Cassius twisted in midair. The stone blade grazed his flank. White fur turned crimson. Pain flared. He didn't stop. Elara was cornered, watching him. Protect, the ancient blood sang. Destroy. He landed on the marble, claws gouging deep trenches. Kill him, Valerius shrieked from the throne, waving the broken staff. Crush him. The remaining statues marched. Boom, boom. Cassius roared, not noise, a weapon. The shockwave blew the remaining windows out. He charged. He didn't bite the legs, he went for the throat. He leaped, locked jaws around the lead statue's neck. Crunch. Rock turned to gravel in his mouth. He ripped the head free. The body toppled, crashing into the others like falling timber. Dust choked the room. No, Valerius whimpered. Cassius turned his golden gaze to the usurper. The statues were rubble. The guards were gone, just the wolf and the false king. Cassius stepped over the debris. He pushed the magic down. The shift was agony. Bones snapped, reshaped. Fur receded into skin. He forced it. He wanted Valerius to see a man, not a beast. He stood, naked, coated in dust and ichor, eyes still burning with the light of a supernova. Stay back, Valerius scrambled up the throne steps. He pointed a jagged shard of the staff. I have power, I have. Cassius grabbed the wood. Snap. He broke it like dry kindling. Valerius collapsed into the iron throne, trembling. A dark stain spread across his silk trousers. Please, Valerius begged. I'll give you anything, gold, land, take the girl. Cassius didn't speak. He reached out, wrapped his hand around the prince's throat. He lifted him off the ground, feet dangling. You stole my crown, Cassius rasped. His voice was a millstone grinding bone. He squeezed. Valerius clawed at his wrist. Useless. You stole my land. But you made one mistake, Cassius whispered, leaning close. You touched my wife. Valerius's eyes bulged. Do it, Elara's voice cut through the dust. Cold, final. Cassius looked at Valerius. He didn't see a king. He saw a parasite. The debt is settled. He crushed the windpipe. Click. He dropped the body. It tumbled down the steps, a heap of gold and failure. Cassius stood there, heaving. The adrenaline crashed, leaving him dizzy. Cassius. Soft hands touched his bloody arm. He turned. Elara, covered in soot, hair a wild halo, the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Is it over? She whispered. Cassius looked at the corpse, then at her. He pulled her into his chest, buried his face in the curve of her neck, inhaled her scent, lavender and victory. Yes, he breathed against her skin. It is done.
The quiet was absolute. Elara held onto Cassius. The doors groaned open. The mob poured in. Commoners with pitchforks, wolves in human skin, royal guards who had dropped their swords. They stopped. They saw the rubble, the shattered glass, the dead prince at the foot of the throne, and they saw Cassius, the barbarian, naked, bloody, unbroken. Fear rippled through the room. "He killed the prince," a baker whispered. "Is he going to kill us?" Elara felt Cassius tense. His shoulder moved to shield her. "No," she whispered. She stepped away from his protection. She walked to the body of Valerius. She reached down and picked up the heavy gold crown from a puddle of blood, dented, stained, hollow. She turned to the crowd, raising the crown high. "Valerius is dead," her voice didn't shake. "The tyranny is dead." "But who rules?" a noble shouted from the back. "The beast." Elara looked at the noble, then at Cassius. She walked back to him. She reached into her tattered bodice and pulled out the scroll, the one she had carried since the cage. Statute 404. "This law," she said, holding the parchment up. "It said he was property, that I owned him." The room held its breath. "But laws written by tyrants," Elara said, "are just chains made of ink." She walked to a fallen torch, still burning. She held the corner of the scroll to the flame. Whoosh! It caught. Fire ate the words. "No man owns another," Elara declared as the ash floated to the floor. "And no king rules alone." She turned to Cassius. She didn't try to crown him. It was too small for a god. She walked up the steps to the iron throne. She placed the crown on the velvet seat. Then she sat on the right armrest. "Come, husband," she said. She patted the left armrest. Cassius stared. His golden eyes softened. A smile, rare and real, touched his lips. He walked up the steps. He ignored the throne. He sat on the armrest beside her. They towered over the empty seat of power. "We do not sit on the throne," Cassius rumbled. "We stand above it." He took Elara's hand. His large, scarred fingers interlaced with her small, pale ones. "Long live the Iron King," Cale shouted, raising his axe. "Long live Queen Elara," the baker screamed. The chant started, a vibration in the floor, a roar. "Long live the pack, long live the pack." Elara squeezed Cassius's hand. They had burned the world down. Now they would build a new one, together. 6 months later. The air smelled of jasmine and wet earth. Elara sat on a stone bench in the royal gardens, but it wasn't the manicured, geometric prison of her youth. Vines ran wild over the walls. A deer grazed near the fountain. Chaotic, beautiful. "You're brooding." A deep rumble. Elara looked up. Cassius leaned against an apple tree. He wore a loose tunic, open at the chest. The scar where the arrow hit him was a silver line against bronze skin. "I'm not brooding," Elara smiled, closing her book. "I'm thinking." "Dangerous." He pushed off the tree. He moved with that predatory liquid grace. He sat next to her. He didn't ask. He pulled her into his lap. Elara laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. "The council is arguing about the grain tax," she sighed. "And the northern lords are nervous about wolves patrolling the borders." "Let them be nervous," Cassius grunted. He kissed the top of her head. "Fear keeps them honest." "We can't rule by fear forever, Cassius," she murmured, tracing the line of his jaw. "We don't," he said. He caught her hand, kissed her palm, right on the white scar. "We rule by blood and love." The heat in his eyes made her breath hitch. Even after months, looking at him felt like staring into the sun. "Happy?" he asked softly. Elara looked at the garden, at the city beyond the walls. Children played in the streets. Shifters walked openly. "Yes," she whispered. A shadow fell over them. Cale. He wasn't smiling. He held a scrolled parchment with a black wax seal. "My king, my queen." He bowed low. "What is it?" Cassius's body tensed beneath her. The lover vanished. The alpha returned. "A messenger from across the sea," Cale said. "From the Sapphire Empire." Elara took the scroll, broke the seal. Snap, she read it, her blood cooled. "To the usurper wolf and the witch queen. You occupy a throne that belongs to the old blood. Prepare your shores. The true armada sails at dawn. Silence stretched in the garden. The deer bolted. Bad news, Cassius asked. He felt the spike in her pulse. Elara looked at him. The peace was over. The war was just beginning. But she wasn't the girl in the corset anymore. She wasn't afraid. She crumpled the letter in her fist. She stood, smoothed her dress. It seems, she said, a wicked, dangerous smile curling her lips, that the world hasn't learned its lesson yet. Cassius stood beside her. His eyes flashed gold. A low growl vibrated in his chest. Let them come, he said. Elara slipped her dagger from her sleeve. She twirled it. Yes, she whispered, looking at the horizon. Let them come. The wolves are hungry.